65 plus out of about 12 million people. We're talking about, for seniors, 2.1 million out of 12 million. That's 1 out of every 6 people in the state are seniors. And guess what? In 20 years, seniors will be 9% of Pennsylvania's population. Something you're the expert on all of this. That's what you deal with. But it's a huge part of the population of the state. And, you know, the legislature funds a variety of programs for them. Sometimes it gets a lot of attention and sometimes it doesn't. I'm chatting with Russ McDade. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. He comes in to give us a senior citizen update. Take it. Go wherever you want with that.
Well, Terry, it doesn't get enough attention from our viewpoint. And from time to time, you know, we have to sit back and take stock of how we're investing in our seniors and our state budget. In the governor's proposed budget this year, for the 4th time in 4 proposed budgets, we see no funding increase for our most frail and vulnerable seniors, those requiring 24/7 round-the-clock care in nursing facilities, and it's a significant challenge and concern for us.
Yeah, well, I guess the point is, it's an election year. There's not going to be any tax hikes. I think you would agree. The governor wants the shale tax, and I talked a little bit about that with Laura. The legislature is not likely to give it to him. So what literally can be done? First of all, I want to talk a little specifically about the programs, but in general, what can be done to increase funding?
Well, yeah, first about the programs. I mean, we're talking about round-the-clock skilled care for our most frail and vulnerable Pennsylvanians. And when we look at budget priorities, each and every year, the budget's always tight. There are always challenges. Yet we find a way to increase funding. Over the last 4 years, we've increased funding for education to the tune of 10%, in our roads and infrastructure to the tune of 7%, for convicted criminals living in our state prisons to the tune of another 10%, and health care for those convicted criminals. Think about that. And we're talking about flat funding for seniors in Medicaid-funded nursing facilities.
Yeah,
Yet at the same time, the administration has noted they've needed an 18% increase to keep up with the rising cost of health care for convicted criminals in our prisons. I mean, it doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, name some of the programs that you think the state ought to be increasing the funding for.
Oh, across the board.
Seniors.
You talk, the population's going up. The rising tide needs to go up with it. We have this, we have this belief that if we fund less nursing facility care, I think things will take care of itself. There's an initiative within the administration, within many states, to try to serve as many people as we can at home. Makes all the sense in the world when you can be served at home. I can tell you, and the dedicated men and women providing care in our nursing facilities can tell you, that there are very few, if any, people residing in our nursing facilities who can stay home.
Not to get personal, but my mother was in a nursing home, and it became impossible to keep her home. I mean, there is a point, and as you accurately point out, I mean, for some people, that's great if they want to do it. But at some point, the care gets so significant, or, you know, the need for the care becomes so important, families can't do it. Am I wrong? Right?
No, our people in our nursing facilities are older, sicker, and need more care than ever. They cost more money than ever. And we have inflation every year. We're living longer. And so we don't get to the facility doors until 85 or 90 now. Maybe we used to get there younger, but when we do get there, we're high cost. And we absolutely need to see an investment in that care in this year's budget. When we talk to legislators about this, and it's now in the legislature's hands, Terry, the governor flat funded the line item. Now the legislature has the opportunity to increase funding for this population. And, you know, we hear from them the challenges that you noted.
Right.
And I kind of tell them, look, that's above my pay grade. The how is their job, but we've got to find a way to plus up dollars in this budget.
All right, when we come back from this break, I want to talk about lawsuit abuse reform, something that's high on your priority list as well, and we'll do that in a moment. I'm chatting with Russ McDade from the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. Before we get on the lawsuit, I mean, I think there's a resistance at first to go into them. I know my mother wasn't wild about it. She didn't want to go in. And then when she went in, we couldn't, you know, she wouldn't leave if she had had the opportunity because of the experience there. Is that what you find in most cases?
We hear that all the time. We hear that all the time. We have those tough conversations. You and I have talked about those difficult conversations. Mom or dad go in, and it's not the most pleasant day, the day that they have to go into the facility. And the next time a family member comes to visit, they don't have time for them. They've
They're
got to
too
get
busy
to lunch.
doing all their things.
Right. We've got cards at 2 o'clock. We're going on a trip to see a show this evening. And so it really does. You really can live a robust life within a senior living community.
Yeah, good point. All right. Lawsuit abuse reform is an important topic in the legislature, but it sometimes takes a backstage to all the budget, the things we were just talking about. Bring us up to date. What's the status of legislation, and what's the likelihood anything will get done?
Yeah, lawsuit abuse reform, first of all, it is a budget issue. We're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars over a course of several years leave this state to the pockets of predatory out-of-state lawyers who are placing ads in our papers and targeting Pennsylvania nursing facilities because of our lax tort climate here in Pennsylvania. So it's very much a budget issue as well because it's taking dollars out of the hands of the dedicated men and women who are providing care in this state. There's a bill introduced in the Pennsylvania legislature, it's House Bill 1037, that would provide the same protections that physicians have had in Pennsylvania.
What's that?
For more than 15 years. And so it would place a limit on punitive damages. Back in the early 2000s, doctors were fleeing Pennsylvania because our court climate, specialists couldn't make a go of it. Obstetricians and orthopeds and neurologists were fleeing Pennsylvania because they were getting sued so frequently. At the time the MCARE Act was passed, that cap was put in place, which gave them predictability and leveled the playing field for them. They can now practice in Pennsylvania. Look, when they're wrong, they pay. But when they're not, they can take a case to court without fear of losing their practice because of a runaway jackpot punitive jury verdict. We're trying to get the same protections for long-term care providers.
So is this a total solution? Is it a partial solution to the lawsuit abuse problem?
It's the first of a number of solutions that we need to see. We got to take on the one that's in front of us. So this will, right now, long-term care providers are forced to settle 80% of their cases out of court.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I hear most of the time is that they don't end up in court, they just make a payment, right?
And it's not because they're wrong. It's because they can't afford to take the financial risk of going to court because of the risk of that big jackpot punitive award. If that's taken off the top, then facilities can go to court, and perhaps as importantly, consumers can have their day in court too. Make no mistake, this is a pro-consumer bill, Terry.
Well, that begs one important question. The legislature can have its moments where it doesn't do very much. So where does it all stand?
You know what? They've been wonderful on this issue, and we're very optimistic that the time is approaching to get this done. We've had conversations with many of the members of the Pennsylvania House, with a number of the members of the Pennsylvania Senate, our dedicated men and women, and the people who are receiving care in our nursing facilities have made the case that this is an important protection for them. And I think we're close to getting this done in the Pennsylvania House, so stay tuned.
Okay, well, it's got to get through the Senate and then to the governorship. We're just about out of time. Well, you want to come in and keep us updated on that. I'll give you an assignment, right, to make sure we're updated on that.
Will do.
Thanks for coming in. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.